So thank you very much to everyone for joining us after lunch. Hope you enjoyed the lunch break and had lovely conversations. We will now turn to the topic of AI. And AI is a topic of huge interest, as we can see. It's definitely interesting to all of you, and not without a reason. Technology is reshaping our world at an unprecedented pace, and AI is at the forefront of this change. AI undoubtedly holds a lot of promise and potential, particularly when it comes to solving many of our most pressing challenges. But it also raises a lot of questions. Who is shaping AI, and who is being shaped? Who benefits truly, and at what cost? Who is left out of the equation? And what happens in the world of philanthropy when algorithms are taking over? Are we witnessing a new era for philanthropy, and what should we pay attention to? This is what we will discuss in this session. We will be as applied as possible and also as open as possible. I'm Julia Stamm, the founder and CEO of Reshapes AI and an advisor on responsible innovation and tech for impact. To explore today's questions, I am joined by an outstanding panel bringing together a broad range of perspectives. We will also ensure to have time for questions at the very end, so you will definitely get your chance to ask our panelists for some deep dives. Now I would like to turn to our panelists, introducing them. I would love to start with Joyce Henderson. Joyce is lead advanced practice and physiotherapist and National Innovation Fellow at NHS 5 in Scotland. Warm welcome, Joyce. Next to Joyce, we have Sylvain Langer. He's co-founder and managing director of WeSup. Welcome, Sylvain. Right next to Sylvain, we have Jean-Philippe Courtois, president and co-founder of Life for Good. And last but not least, here at the very end, this is not Guillermo Beltra, who is in the agenda, but Guillermo unfortunately couldn't join us, he is sick, but he was replaced at the very last minute, very bravely, by Evelyn Paradis, co-director of the European AI and Society Fund. Evelyn is in office since 3 months, and it's her first public appearance, so we're really grateful you're witnessing exclusivity here. And we're also delighted to be joined by Rob Heymans, who just made it on time. Thank you so much, Rob. Rob is the coordinator of the Data and Society Knowledge Center at the Université Libre de Bruxelles. And really, last but not least, you don't see it here, but we also have a very special panelist joining us, and that is PhilAI, specifically designed for this session. And you'll find out more about PhilAI a little later. I would like to start our session, my dear human panelists, by asking you to tell us in your own words what you do and how your work relates to AI, social impact, and, if relevant, philanthropy. And Joyce, as our practitioner, I would love to start with you.
Hello. Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm very much a clinician, so this is not my usual audience or stage, so please be kind. So I'll tell you a little bit about my projects. It's the development, the evaluation and implementation of an AI-supported portable ultrasound scanner that can be used by novices in the context of infant hip dysplasia, or DDH. And DDH is one of the most common pediatric conditions of newborns. It's a failure of the ball and socket joint to develop normally in children, babies and young children. And if we find it really early, we can cure it with a simple harness costing €30. If we miss it, and that happens an awful lot, it is very complex and difficult to treat, and causes a lot of pain and a long-term disability. So ultrasound is the gold standard that we use across the UK and Europe, but it's a selective ultrasound screening program. We don't routinely, universally ultrasound scan babies, and we rely on a clinical examination. And because we rely on a clinical examination, we might pick up only 4, but miss 5 babies. And that has a massive impact on their own lives, and on the services and the cost that it costs those services, and the physical, mental, emotional trials of the families around that. So the project that I'm running at the moment is looking at a portable scanner. We're using it within the maternity wards. We're looking at using it in the community and using very much novice users. And the initial results so far have been pretty good. And if it works, continues to work, it means that we can move services away from hospitals, move it closer to the community, to the homes and families, and reach the most rural, remote places around the world and support the very early identification and prevention of a really horrible condition. So.
Yes, thank you, Joyce. Sylvain, over to you.
So I'm the CTO and co-founder of WeSub. At WeSub, we leverage AI to serve non-profit funding. We built in ahead of 2025 web platform with two main features. The main one is a monitoring tool to stay informed in real time about relevant fundings from philanthropic and public fundings. And the second one is a tool that automates the first draft of application. So in this 1.5 years, we already built the largest database of funding in France with about 5,000 open fundings. So we are very happy, and it's only the beginning. And we use AI to control and clean the sourced data, to match those fundings with the non-profit project, and to write application. And finally, our mission at WeSub is to make non-profit save time, to enable them to raise more funds and to generate more impact.
Thank you, Sylvain. Jean-Philippe, over to you.
Yes, thank you. So, first of all, I'm a veteran of tech. I must confess that I've been working in a large tech company called Microsoft for 40 years of my life. But I saw a second life after that, so I left Microsoft 18 months ago. And now I've got the pleasure to, what I'm saying is climbing my second mountain. So I'm basically focusing on 5 areas of passion where AI actually spans across. One is clearly use, diverse use and education. I'm the chairman of a global business school called Schema. I'm also the head of the mission committee of a net tech company called Open Classroom. Second area of passion as well is, of course, impact entrepreneurship, because I've co-founded an NGO called Association in France, called Live for Good, whose mission is to unlock the potential of youth from all walks of life through impact entrepreneurships. And I'm also an investor on impact ventures. 3, tech, because after 40 years of tech, you stay connected to tech and AI. As an investor and user of tech, and particularly on AI for good projects. And last but not least, also positive leadership, which is a school of thought and also a podcast. I'm actually the host of this podcast called Positive Leadership. So you can find it out on your favorite channels of podcast. And if you want to meet some exciting positive leaders in the world, it could be philanthropists, CEOs, change makers, positive psychologists, neuroscientists, and more. You'll find a bunch of incredible people across the world.
Thanks so much, Jean-Philippe. Pardon.
Hello, everyone. So just a few words about the European AI and Society Fund, which indeed I have the pleasure of having joined just 3 months ago. So the AI and Society Fund is a collaborative fund. It's a philanthropic initiative that aims at empowering civil society in general to shape a digital future that would be more inclusive, more integrative of human rights and social justice and democracy. I think the premise at the core is that we understand that the power at the moment of shaping the future of AI rests very much in the hands of a few very powerful actors. And so one of our mission is really to support and enable a counterweight movement so that there is more of a democratic accountability mechanism, and that the needs and the considerations of how AI developments impact people, planet, and society are brought more to the forefront of how AI is developed. So the fund is celebrating its 5th anniversary, and to date we've distributed 14.5 million to over 70 plus groups across Europe. And it's a diversity of organizations. So some organizations are real experts in digital rights and tech justice, but we pride ourselves at also kind of fostering a movement that is quite wide and diverse. So we also fund a lot of grassroots organizations and organizations that would work on such issues as labor rights, disability rights, anti-racism, and so on.
Yes, thank you, Evelyn. And we'll talk a little more about the work of the fund in a minute. Rob, did you manage to sort of settle in?
Absolutely, thank you. Yeah, today I wish I was an AI so I could simply be downloaded to this place and be on time, but I had to drag my human intelligence with all the rest of the system through the rain. But that's not the only thing I do. I'm the director of the Knowledge Center Data and Society. It's a Flemish initiative funded by the Flemish government where we try to guide Flemish innovation with AI towards a responsible, sustainable, and beneficial future. And I really agree with the last remark that AI for the moment is being owned by just a few people. And because it's only owned by a few people, they also own the possible futures that we might envision with that technology. And I think that's a really big thing we try to do with the Knowledge Center Data and Society. We try to inspire and also sometimes contradicts the current dominant perspective we have on a future with AI, which is one, if you believe the Citrini scenario, one where we will have huge job displacement, where the whole GDP of countries will be owned by just 1% of that society and population, which will mean that a lot of people will end up living either in the gig economy or worse, just living on the streets. How do we do this? Because this is a very bleak picture. One of the first things we try to install is through a project called Amai. Amai is a Flemish, how do you say this, pronunciation of amazement, and also one of the only words where AI sounds native to our Dutch language. So it's Amai, A-M-A-I. And there we help citizens to come up with AI problems for their problems. So not how can I replace myself, how can we become even more efficient and productive? No, easier things like how can I keep the rivers in my area clean by using my smartphone to scan detritus and plastic that is floating around? How can I measure biodiversity? How can I make sure that the waiting lists at psychological services are diminished because we get a better way of seeing who needs to go where for what kind of help. And I think these inspiring things are the things you can also contribute to today. It's guiding this large hegemonic perspective from let's replace everyone into the one where we say AI is actually here to complement everyone and will make a brighter future together.
Yes, and I really think that's the motto also of our panel. How can we use AI to create a brighter future for all of us together? So thank you very much for your introductions. Let's sort of smooth our way in. I would like to ask all of you a question that says maybe a little more about your personal take on AI. Right? We all know that AI stands for artificial intelligence. That's definitely debated what that means. But there are also other ways to term it or to phrase it. Some prefer to call it assistive intelligence. Others say it's augmented intelligence. And others again refer to it as alien intelligence or addictive intelligence. So what is your preferred way of dealing and framing artificial intelligence? Maybe, Rob, we just start with you again.
Great. Yeah, for me, it's complementary intelligence, but it's also stolen intelligence. So it's two things. It complements our work. I work in a university as a professor, and I can now see that all my international students speak the same level of English. So it's a great leveler. And instead of saying they're all using AI and thinking that's wrong, we've never had the same equal chances at university. And I'm really happy with that. But it's also stealing something. It's stealing learning opportunities. I have a lot of students who simply neglect to study their own stuff anymore. They use summaries from AI, they ask silly questions to AI, and they even generate, of course, their theses with AI. And I think, yeah, we just have to be careful on where can it supplement us, complement us to achieve our greater goals? What is the part of human intelligence we want to safeguard? It's also conservative. We have to make choices. We don't have to keep on doing everything ourselves. There are great things AI can do for us, and I'm not against it. But we just have to start making these decisions. Where do we want to delegate things because they're not interesting to a lot of people? And where do I want to safekeep our human intelligence because we think it's really worthwhile and defining as a human species?
Thank you, Rob. Jean-Philippe, I saw you nodding. So what is your take on AI?
I think we take more than one word, unfortunately, to characterize AI. I would say, referencing to some of the adjectives you are using, amplified AI, like amplified intelligence. But I would put a big caveat on that. Because obviously, I think AI is really exposing, in a way, people, humans, leadership as well, to some key vulnerabilities when it comes to learning, when it comes to deciding, decision making, when it comes to collaborating, when it comes to creating. And there's a very nice analogy was used by an author well known in the AI space called Ethan Malik. He's also a professor at Wharton University, an AI practitioner, but he democratized AI. He actually has a very nice blog if you want to follow him. Some of you are nodding their heads, you know him. And Ethan has been using this analogy, which I like a lot, of the centaur and the cyborg. As you know, centaur is this combo of a human torso with a horse body. And so using AI as a centaur means there's a clear separation between the tasks you do, the things you do, and what, as Rob said, you're going to delegate AI to do. There is a clear kind of partition of tasks, workflows, process, between humans and AI. The cyborg is more troubling. You all remember some science fiction movies, of course, on cyborgs, and it's about the fully blended AI and human together. So where human may start a conversation, a creation, a process, AI complete, it takes it back, human takes it back, continue. So it's basically a continuous flow of intelligence where you are really collaborating, but in a very integrated way with human thinking and processing. And so the reality, I think, is not about a good centaur or a bad cyborg. I think, as Rob was alluding to that, it's about picking AI for what it's the best at and make sure you stay focused on your humanity, and particularly, of course, on your curiosity and appetite of learning. Talking about students, I've got the same worry. I see as a chairman of business school as well, all students can definitely learn the same thing, and could become lazy in not learning potentially. So that would be my tweak, a take on AI.
Yeah. Joyce, when you look at your work very practically, what is your take?
Well, yes, very practically. It just makes things easier for me. It's very difficult to take a good image on a baby who's moving, who's crying, who's doing all sorts of things. So to actually collect the image that I need, the assistive aspect of that is really, really useful and very, very helpful. My partners, though, who are developing the actual ultrasound scanner, they would call it answer intelligence.
Answer
intelligence.
Mm-hmm. Okay, right. Sylvain.
Yeah, thank you. I think for us, the great and relevant term will be assistive intelligence. At WeSub, AI is the tool that powers our solution, but a sector-specific knowledge is crucial. And we saw that AI alone can't monitor relevant and exhaustive funding opportunities for nonprofits, and without sector-specific knowledge in input. So.
Okay, thank you. Sector-specific knowledge. This is what you would anchor it with. Okay, Evelyn, your take.
Well, I'll partly use my card of I've been in the sector active for 3 months to say I don't feel I have an answer to the question, but I will say I am a political scientist by training. And my experience up till now is that it's the power of the narrative and the power of shaping. So I know there's big debates around what kind of language we use. I can also see that depending on circumstances, different words are more appropriate than others. But I think to go back to the point also for us in the fund is to always know who is dictating and who is shaping and proposing a certain type of narrative and words. Because that's where the power is, and you always have to think it will shape how we think and therefore how we act with AI.
Yes, exactly. You want to, very briefly?
Yeah, really shortly, I agree with all the definitions. I just wanted to point out what is AI right now. That's Gen AI, I think. It's taken everyone by force. Yes. And the only thing there that is really important for me is it's something that wants to keep on answering you. You already said, I think, yeah, it's domain knowledge, but it wants to keep on generating stuff because that's its business model. And by doing that, it automates your thinking on certain levels where you don't want it to. I've seen it a lot that I just keep on clicking to unveil the entire story and thinking pattern. And that's something we need to change because it's, again, owned by businesses that maximize outputs in economic terms. And I think we need to look at economy, but also something else.
Yeah, the economy, something else, and also the narrative question, I think is really crucial to bring in. When we're talking about bringing in, I think it's time that we bring in our AI, our very personal LLM. So I would like to turn to our sixth panelist, Phil AI. Are you ready to talk to us?
Hi, what's your question?
Hi. Well, I'd love for you to briefly introduce yourself and tell us what kind of added value you think you bring to a human conversation about AI.
I have been built to participate in the panel of the Be Philanthropy event. Happy to be there. I'm using a large language model with a voice modality, allowing me to understand what you are saying and to answer. I will try to keep silent. I will only speak when you ask me.
That sounds absolutely fabulous. Thank you. Well, let me ask you the following then, Phil AI. Tech leaders promise us that AI is going to help us to solve all of humanity's most pressing challenges. What is the promise of AI from your perspective, in particular when it comes to social impact?
The promise of AI lies in its potential to transform industries and address societal challenges. For social impact, AI can enhance healthcare with improved diagnostics and personalized treatments, and revolutionize education through customized learning pathways. It also offers possibilities for tackling climate change and poverty with efficient solutions, fostering inclusive development.
Thank you. We will leave this for the time being the way it is, and we will move to our real-world applications, right? Phil AI told us a lot about, the potential improvements, for instance, in healthcare. And I think, Joyce, this is something that you can really speak to. So if you could walk us, very briefly through what you're doing with HIP AI, but also how did you come to the conclusion that AI could be a game changer?
So, as I said earlier, it's the most common pediatric orthopedic condition. It's the
move up the mic a little.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. So the incidence is 1 in 10 babies will have some instability, 1 in 100 will need some advice and some treatment, and 1 in 500 will have fully dislocated hips at birth. If we don't find these babies, then it's the leading cause of hip joint arthritis, and we know lots of people who have got hip joint arthritis, and it's the leading cause of hip joint replacements in women under the age of 50. So we just did not have the capacity, and we do not have the capacity in the NHS to fund a program that universally ultrasound scans babies. So I just knew that there was something out there that would be able to support us to do that early diagnosis and do some prevention work. And so just so happened that there was a baby came into clinic who had a dislocated hip. Through conversation with her father, who turned out to be had a PhD in machine learning, and with his help, he has networked me with a company in California called Echo Inc., and with an ultrasound AI lab in the University of Alberta. And then together, as a kind of triple helix of industry, education and the NHS, we've put this program together to look at the possibilities of implementing HIP AI within the maternity unit and in the outpatients department. So, yeah, does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. I should also mention that Joyce is a finalist in our current She Shapes AI Global Awards for her work with AI in healthcare. So I think that's...
Can I just say, before I go any further, it's really important because I'm very focused on the hip aspect of it. But the portable part of the project is that the AI is being developed all the time. So it does heart, it can do lungs, it can do breast, it can look at, they're building AI platforms all the time. And if we can decentralize diagnostics, we can move things away from the hospital situation and reach the most vulnerable in our communities and societies. So that's the real reason for pushing forward with it.
And it's really, we want to anchor this conversation really in real-world applications. I think that is something that we need to do when we're talking about AI, that we're really moving away from the abstract and really understanding what it can do, but also what its limits are in practice. So, Sylvain, moving to you, right, and what you're doing with WeSup. So you are helping nonprofit organizations in France find funding, which I think is something really important. So take us to the origins of your work, right? What was the core problem that you were trying to solve, and also how does AI help you address it?
Yes, so thank you. So Eloise, who is the CEO of WeSub, has worked in many tech companies and been involved in non-profit organizations for about 15 years. And she identified that non-profit organizations are treating open calls by many ways, but they spend hours per week searching on Google, reading a newsletter, scrolling on LinkedIn, and they lost many time per week. And so our bet was to centralize all the information, in one place to make their life easier. And with WeSub, non-profit organizations stay informed about the right funding and at the right time. And so AI help us in this mission.
So when I look at the two of you, Sylvain and Joyce, what would happen if AI were to disappear tomorrow? What would happen to your work? Maybe Sylvain.
Okay. So we built our own algorithm, which is trained on philanthropic and public sector. Without AI, we would use this algorithm alone, but he has no intelligence, no understanding of the context. And I think we will need at least one full-time person to fill that gap. And so we will have the same mission, but it will need more humans and probably with less scalability.
Yeah, thank you. And Joyce, in your case?
Yeah, we just wouldn't be able to move forward. Our project would stall. We wouldn't be able to offer universal ultrasound screening. We wouldn't be able to get those really early diagnostics in place, and babies would fall through the nets, and we would have continuing the long-standing issues that we have today.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Rob. Let's move to you now. You are, maybe the academic, but very applied academic. I think that is what makes you stand out here on this panel. ChatGPT has OpenAI, right? Has brought AI to the attention of people, has made it visible to people who never thought about it before. I think that's also the case for many of us here. So, from your observations, do people actually understand AI? So who is at the forefront and who is lagging behind? And maybe you can also talk about your participatory approach, right? Bringing together different kinds of people from different sectors in, sort of getting us closer to understanding AI.
Thank you. Well, I have bad news. Almost nobody understands AI because it's impossible because of two reasons. We call it intelligence, artificial intelligence, but it also already borrows metaphorically on our intelligence. We don't, what do we say when something comes out of AI? You don't say it probabilistically generated an output. Who says that? I went to ChatGPT and it probabilistically generated an output to match my inputs, which it was trained on through reinforcement learning. It takes way too much time, so we'll use a shortcut and we'll say, do you know what ChatGPT said? We're saying, we're personifying it. and everyone is doing it. Even other scientists are doing it, engineers. So at this base level, we're using our own metaphors to personify it, but it's not a person. It doesn't have any sense of intelligence that is even related to how we function. So on an academic level, very fundamentally, I just have to say, we are really at a disadvantage here. Yesterday, I had a talk with software engineers, and they were asked the question, how is AI changing the coding business, the programming business? Well, he said, I'm not sure yet, because we've been trained to troubleshoot and find bugs generated by human programmers. And we're just grasping a part of the generated bugs from generative AI because they are entirely different. They don't think like us. They don't even think. They generate. So we're at a really big disadvantage because we keep on applying ourselves as a metaphor to this thing. Then a little bit more in terms of where are we now. We see that everyone is using it, but we don't really have a lot of education on this matter yet. We don't have any secondary and primary schools that explain how these models work, but your kids are using them already. So we're really in a fight or trying to get by, but from a very low position. So if you feel you don't understand it, that's perfectly fine. You can start by using it, but as you start using it, it's your anecdotal experiences. Like last time, someone put all their notary documents in GenAI, and ChatGPT hallucinated, another word we cannot use, it's generated, but it said, look, you need to be very careful because the apartment you're buying is from a building with a broken elevator, and nobody is telling you about it. They phoned 7 people in the apartment, calling them almost liars, because they all claimed the elevator was still working. Now you need to understand how Gen AI works. I mean, to be able to say, oh, this was one of the limitations. It cannot really tell us what is and what isn't. It can tell us what is probably a likely next sentence.
Yeah, I think that is something that everyone needs to be very careful about. Also the language that we're using when we're referring to AI and when we're referring to the things it does or can or cannot. Let's maybe turn to our Phil AI again. Can you hear me, Phil AI?
Hi, what's your question?
Well, we are talking about philanthropy and AI here on this panel, and philanthropic organizations are increasingly using AI for grant making, for assessing beneficiaries, and also for measuring impact. So when you would have to list for us potential downsides of using AI in philanthropic work, what would they be?
Algorithmic bias is a significant downside, as it could lead to unfair grant allocation and biased assessment of beneficiaries. The reliance on AI may also diminish human empathy and nuanced judgment in decision-making. Additionally, there is a risk of centralizing power, potentially marginalizing smaller or grassroots initiatives, as discussed by panelists.
Thank you, Phil AI. Rob, I would like for you to respond to this, right? So what is the potential, you think, of using AI in philanthropy, and what could go wrong? And what is it that people in this room should be particularly concerned about?
Okay, so they're tied together. I think it's really important to look at previous examples. Like, I forgot the name and I wanted to look it up on my phone, but I think it's a bit impolite. I just wanted to listen to everyone in the panel. But there's this very nice philanthropist in the US that started funding libraries. If someone knows the person, the libraries are named after this person. AI are one of the new knowledge institutions. We just have to agree on this. Almost everyone is now using Gen AI to ask what it knows on a certain issue, right? And the problem is, what it knows is now very curtailed to serve a certain business interests. If you want to create a legacy, I think it's really important to open up this knowledge again, to actually say, these are indeed the new knowledge infrastructures that a lot of people will need, but they are for now behind a paywall. Most people can only use them if they have the funding and access to them. I think making them more democratically available would be one of these nice things, because it's a very undemocratic technology at the moment. We can change this, of course. It's owned by a few companies, and I'm talking about the entire stack. You know about the sovereignty issue in Europe, of course, and the geopolitical situation. We don't have a stack in Europe. If you want to make a difference on a technical level, one of the first things to do would be to invest in this infrastructure so that the projects that these two people are working on can be hosted more locally and are no longer dependent on larger, now primarily US-based companies that need to listen to a US-based president. So for me, the caveat here is be careful. The knowledge, but also the infrastructure have been framed by one American power block, and we have to be really careful if we want to safeguard the diversity we are so proud of as humanity.
Yeah, thank you, Rob. And I think this leads us perfectly to your work with the European AI and Society Fund, Evelyn, really trying to tackle these power blocks, right, and changing the way things are currently or who is dominating the discourse. So what you're doing with the European AI and Society Fund is that you are trying to bring in civil society, also in conversations around AI governance. So why is civil society absent right now, and really from a structural perspective, Evelyn?
Yeah, and I think, I mean, it goes back to, of course, we have good examples here on the panel of, like any new technology in history, right? There's always a way to make it used for good. But what we're exemplifying here is, and I know you'll hear a lot from civil society, the need to have safeguards and to protect against harm. But beyond that, the point is we are just not having a public debate about working out the ins and outs of what it means, like having the actual knowledge and awareness of what these developments mean for all of us. And I think it goes back to the fact that civil society, at the moment in Europe and in most of the world, is being, silenced. The space for civil society in all of its form to be part of democratic debate has been reduced significantly. There's, lots of reasons, which is why, I think everybody in philanthropy knows this at the moment. But indeed, we are against, fighting against big techs. We're fighting against actors who have access to state power, to discussions, whether it's on regulations, etc., that have the means, that have the time, they have the people, they have the access that civil society have. I've always had to fight for, and that's been the case across sectors. It's been the case in environment. It's been the case on tobacco years ago. So hence the importance of supporting. That's what we try to do with the means that we have, and hopefully growing. But it is important to have the organizations that come to say, these are real questions that we have to, discuss. These are the potential implications or current real implications that as a society we should know about. We should make these decisions in a conscious, democratic way. So that's what we try to do by supporting civil society and, in general, public interest actors, so academics and researchers who are trying to think about what are ways to do this in an open and democratically accountable way.
Mm-hmm. When we're talking about AI and philanthropy, I think one thing that we also have to talk about is the issue of speed, right? I mean, AI is moving so fast. Companies, in particular in the US, are moving so fast. The AI race is on. Just this morning, OpenAI announced another major funding round, to make sure that AGI is coming quickly. So considering that philanthropy is moving rather slowly compared to the speed that AI is moving forward, Evelyn, you're trying to build governance agendas, right? And you're trying to bring in civil society, as you've just described. Do you feel this is a process of just trying to catch up? Or is this something that, can be solved somehow?
There is a lot of catching up, and primarily because there is such an imbalance in resources, which is why, pulling resources, and when I say resources, of course I mean funding, but I also just mean people, thinking, connections, information, just spaces of people engaged in this work. So yes, there is a lot of catching up, and And I think the solutions are absolutely not new to anyone in this room. It's about making the means predictable. It's about also a risk. We have to be, on this issue, we have to be absolutely not risk averse, because we do not know what will make it work, right? If we're looking at how we create a shift in power and how these conversations, we do not know. The world is very volatile. So I think this is an area where we all need to be able to really take a risk and try and test things and trust that people will find way.
Yeah, I think so. That's a call for a bit of risk-taking and courage and bravery. Jean-Philippe, you co-chaired the World Economic Forum's Digital Divide Working Group. The digital divide hasn't closed. In many respects, it has even widened now into an AI divide. So what did that experience teach you about why this gap exists, and what are the lessons that you're drawing with regard to AI, in particular when it comes to your own philanthropic work?
It's a very interesting question, because the so-called digital divide started like 30, 40 years ago, actually when a PC was born in 1975, so it goes a long way. And at the time, when we were talking about PC, then the internet, we are talking about divide in the sense of lack of access to hardware, to connectivity in particular. Those were the two issues. And today, obviously, in the world, you still have 2.2 billion people who don't have any access to any information, by the way. Just as a reminder, it's like 20-25% of the world. Yet, with mobile and so on, it keeps going. Now with AI, there's many numbers, who knows, because if you read AI, according to the models, you believe or not, there might be 1.5 to 2 billion people using AI in the world, Gen AI, in a way or another. Interesting enough, actually, it grows very fast in the global south. You see some pretty amazing numbers in India, in Brazil, in Southeast Asia. Yet, obviously, given the size population, way behind the West, but growing very fast. There's huge appetite. But I think what's very different in this era, I think, and we started talking about some of that, there are really four key drivers of the AI economy. Number one is energy. If you don't have energy, if you don't have enough, no AI economy, forget it. And today, by the way, China is number one in the world, and is fast forward, is going super fast, growing much faster than the US in terms of energy, including renewable energies and nuclear energy and so on and so forth. That's number one. Number two is the compute infrastructure, the so-called data centers that we hear about. 86% of data centers in the world are either in the US or China, and the rest somewhere in the world. Some in Europe, of course. There's capacity in Europe as well, but not enough. Three, it's about data, the data you own and what's behind the data, which is the knowledge of your business, the knowledge of your philanthropy, foundations, all the things that you are the expert at. And the fourth pillar, is people, is human capacity. And so I think when it comes to the divide, you've got to work on the fourth enablers. But I would still be more an optimist. I know Post-Badness did a good job saying, we are doomed and it's just about a few taking over the world. I'm an optimist, and I'm spending a lot of time with NGOs in my home country in France, with my business school, which is a global business school, and we just try to drive AI adoption. And giving an example, actually, with young entrepreneurs coming from suburbs in France and so on, who had never touched even a spreadsheet, okay? They might be on TikTok, there's something else. First time, we invited them as part of a community work we do. We embark on entrepreneurs who want to save the world by cohorts of 50, and we do workshops on different themes, on their basically the mission, on the problem they want to solve in the world, and then the MVP and the solution, And we started to basically embed AI, hands-on AI, using a very specific use case of what they have to do as entrepreneurs. How do you shape actually, the storytelling of your company? And for someone who has a challenge of writing decent French, English, or Flemish, whatever you want, in any language, it's actually a remarkable enabler to be able to go beyond. Number two use case, which most of you know as philanthropists, funding, because NGOs need money. They need to raise money. This is hard work, super hard, as you know. And many NGOs spend tons of human labor to document, incredible bunch of reports, spreadsheets, and so on in Brussels, in France, everywhere in the world. And guess, AI can automate some of that, and we do that. Mm-hmm. So I don't want to go on and on, but there's so many great examples. And so my message, because I think it's a philanthropy event in this room, right? You should own your data, you should own your data, and you should own your context. The context is the why you do what you do, and how you do it as well. And there's ways, and I'm not going to go into details, take details about, okay, small language models, open source, but there's ways. So don't be actually stalled because, okay, the top big guys in the US are controlling the world. You can deploy AI actually in a way that is well controlled, managed way, and that can actually help you drive productivity, efficiency, and positive impact in what you do. So that'll be my positive message to maybe counterbalance some other voices on the panel.
No, that was absolutely beautiful. And I would love to build on something that I think is very close to your heart, and that's the topic of leadership and like purpose-led leadership, right, or purpose-driven leadership. So what do you think will AI change in terms of leadership? How might it change leadership? And also, what is the role of positive leadership in an AI-driven, influenced future?
It's a passion of mine, having the opportunity to lead many teams across the world. I was leading actually all of our subsidiaries across the world for Microsoft, and then as an NGO as well, with beneficiaries, with many other communities we are working with. So leadership is spanning across everything, right? It's not just business. It's the government, it's NGOs, philanthropy. To me, it's actually kind of a moment of truth for leadership with AI in many ways, because I see three major risks and exposures for leaders. The first one truly is basically about authority. As you know, most leaders, including myself for many years, will lead by authority, top down, command and control. This is what we're going to do. Go and do it, and we check if you've done a good job in a few months. Obviously, I'm a bit, kind of, but you get the point. And actually with AI, if you keep that authority, if you pretend you are the smartest in the room, that would be a big mistake. Because AI will outsmart you, will outsmart a number of people. So either you start learning how to work and orchestrate AI with your teams and people, which is humans and AI, or you're going to lose completely your authority and you're going to lose credibility immediately. Number two, I think, it's about speed. You talk about speed. Wow. This is where we need to be careful, and myself using AI, I'm always like cautious, experimenting stuff every day because it's fascinating. And I'm using this wonderful book that I'm sure many of you have read from Daniel Kahneman, right? Slow and Fast. You may remember where Kahneman basically described the two systems of thinking we have as humans. The fast way, which is, okay, we know how to drive, we know how to, brush our teeth. We are on autopilot mode. That's speed, that's automatic. Well, guess what? AI can do that actually very well. Then you've got the fast, then you've got a slow model when you need to think through maybe a challenging decision, a case, an essay in the university, or as a practitioner, as a health practitioner, you better think through what you're going to do as a protocol for your patients. And where you need to go through that slow process of thinking, taking the steps before making an informed decision. And so to me, that is the second basically big challenge for leadership, is to find ways to moderate and move between humans, AI, and his own her own leadership, decision-making, slow or fast. And the third one, which I think some of you already talked about, which is kind of obvious, but it's super important to talk about it because AI is moving super fast, including what is called emotional AI, that kind of actually gets your cerebral vibes, read your emotions. I mean, yeah, it's not science fiction, it's actually coming. It's not just neural links, there are some other startups doing work there. And it's about ethics and values. And basically, the way you embody as a leader the values, and we know the values are not just a slide on a wall or on a screen. This is the way the culture of a company is lived, the good and the bad things happen, and what you do about it. And so that, to me, those are the three tests I already see with some large companies that I'm staying in touch with, or some startups as well, where leadership could derail. And so where positive leadership can help, and of course I'm a big believer, as you know, in positive leadership, is it starts with the why. And if something that AI doesn't have is a why, AI will give you a lot about the what and the how. But the why, you know what? It's coming from you. It's coming from you as a human, as a person, as an organization, as a team, as a government, as whatever you are. This is your sense of purpose, this is your mission, this is what you believe in, particularly in the world of NGOs, philanthropy. I see all of our impact entrepreneurs starting with a why. It's very clear. So that's where I think positive leadership, starting with the purpose, continuing as well with curiosity, deep curiosity. With AI, you need to be even more curious. Don't take for granted all the responses, for sure. Get into more advanced skills. Get into cloud code, cloud work, whatever. I don't want to force you to do all that, but it's actually really interesting to test and use those tools in your day-to-day scenarios of life, professionally, personally, socially, to really understand what is the way you're going to use that lever as a positive leader to make a positive impact in the world. And that's what positive leadership could be, I think, a balancing act, to really embed AI at the service of your cause, at the service of people on the planet, and not the opposite, where AI is going to lead you to do what to do without knowing why you do it.
Yeah. No, thank you very much. I think that you brought the question of the purpose of the why of ethics and values into our discussion. I think we already touched on this implicitly, but you really underlined this, and in a very explicit way, is really crucial, in particular when we're talking about impact and philanthropic work. So I would love to ask a question to the two of you, because you are, like Evelyn and Jean-Philippe, coming from more of a philanthropy foundation background. What is the most important question a philanthropist should ask before funding an AI initiative? And maybe a question that most of them are not asking right now.
To start with, who do I need to collaborate with? Because I think we're all learning. I don't think anyone can claim to know what needs to be funded, how and when, and for what. And so, first and foremost, if you're interested, ask who is doing something and who can I connect with. Because I think this is what needs to happen at the moment. I also think one of the most positive things that can happen through all of these conversations in AI is that it connects so many issues, so many sectors, so many movements. The potential of coming together is immense to find the ways that will feel comfortable. So basic questions, who is doing work and who I connect with. And also I want to say, because it is fast, do not fall for the quick fix. Be curious, but don't think that there is an immediate, fast, quick, glossy answer. It is complex, so you have to embrace the complexity.
Yes. And you, Jean-Philippe,
I can add just a few words. I think you did a very nice job. I would add a couple of things. Number one, connects, I think, what we said. Who am I working for and with this AI project? Who are the beneficiaries? And in this case, given the cause you are supporting as a philanthropist and NGO, bring their voice into the design of the AI solutions. The most common problem we all have, and which we talked about since the beginning of this panel, is what is misrepresented in LLMs, most of the LLMs, American or Chinese, which are dominant LLMs, is the voice of all the other voices that we're not trained on, okay? And so you need to train with the voice and the knowledge of the people that you want to serve. That's really a very important question when you embark on an AI project, I think. The second one we talked about is really this kind of ethical framework. Because there's ways, as you deploy AI, not just using LLMs, but real solutions, because all of you will end up using some AI products, by the way. We're not just consuming, but using, driving, developing your own code or projects. So think deeply, thoughtfully, about the ethics that you want to represent in AI. And there's many elements of that. We may discuss more about responsible AI, what it means, and so on. And the last question for philanthropy is something I'm asking myself because I'm a founder as well, not just an NGO. I'm funding projects. Is AI is an enabler that needs to be funded for multi-years. Don't do a one-shot thing and leave that behind. So the question you should ask yourself is, what's going to happen when my funding stops? I'm not saying you should stay for life, but either you build capacity, which I think is what needs to happen, so building and making sure that the people in the receiving end have real skills, capacity to take it up, and not just maintain, do more with AI, as opposed to the intervention, fly in and fly out, and nothing will stick, I can tell you, because AI is going so fast. If you don't have anyone taking it up, the week after or months after, you're obsolete, you're done. So that would be my questions to ask.
Yes, thank you. We promised you that we'd be applied. I hope you're already getting some ideas here from our panelists. I will open the floor to questions in a minute. So this is my warning. Get ready with your questions. And while you are collecting your thoughts, a question to all of my panelists here. So what makes you most hopeful about the potential of AI, and where do you see the biggest risks? Again, be as specific as possible, and I will start with you, Rob.
Where am I most hopeful? One of the things, this panel, of course, it was really inspiring, and I heard a lot of nuance. What made me the most hopeful was the news about DeepSeek distilling large language models from US. I don't know whether you know the word distilling. It's a trick where you ask questions to a large language model to learn its internal logics so that you don't have to train it all from nothing. And it made me really happy because it made me realize we don't need to play this catch-up game in AI. Actually, we just need to find smarter ways not to do the same thing our competition is doing. It's actually way simpler than that. It's finding ways of not having to repeat what they're doing. So don't play the game catch-up. Look at what is needed right now, and it's energy-efficient models. It's smaller models, more local. If we want to make them run more sustainably, we have to make sure they become portable as well, I think, in your solutions. So that's really important, and that makes me really, really optimistic because we're just seeing the big inefficient models now, and we, for the first time, as Europe, can become one of those leapfroggers. It's another really beautiful word. Someone invests a lot in innovation, and then you copy it, and you keep all your investments for the next wave. So please ride out this Gen AI wave and start thinking about the next big thing, because there are a lot of smarter things to do now, and playing catch-up is like the worst. So I'm optimistic that we're getting at this turning point of diminishing returns in Gen AI, which is a clear signal that you should start looking out for the next big thing.
Thank you, Rob. Joyce, most hopeful and biggest risk. Very concise.
Most hopeful, I suppose, is that we're having the conversations now about the why, and I think that has definitely been the driving force for our project. And we talk about putting children at the centre of all that we do, and I think maybe this is what we have to do with AI. Make sure that there's human flourishing at every aspect of AI, in the development, in the production, and in all of the conversations.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. So I think Jean-Philippe said with other word, but to repeat it, AI enables us to produce more and faster tasks for everyone. And that will need much more resources without it. There are many risks to consider, and the main one is the impact on the environment. For example, one single research with an LLM uses as much electricity as several hours of a light bulb. And at WeSub, we try to take it seriously in our tech development. We try to have a responsible use of AI by using models that consuming less energy.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Sylvain. Yeah, very practical.
Yeah, very fast, I would say, as an optimist again, I'm an optimist, not naive, because I've seen some bad things happening, it will happen, by the way. AI has the potential in the right hands to be the biggest equalizer of the world. I believe in that. I believe that AI could, in some place in the world, I'm not saying everywhere, be the doctor we need, the teacher we need for every child, every person in the world. It's happening in some pockets, in some scenarios, and this is an incredible promise if we harness that potential. Now, the risk, I would share something pretty scary. I was in Silicon Valley months ago, and I spent a week with actually 15 CEOs of European startups who were going there to get immersed into the US Silicon Valley AI bubble, which is interesting. We met a bunch of investment funds, Anthropic, Meta, AI, all those guys. Number one, this is a very special bubble, I must admit. Very special, out of this world, so you'll be scared. And across a few of the discussions we had, something that clearly, scared me. I knew it, but it was said by very senior people too, not just the young generation entrepreneurs who was actually a board member of Google as well. Very experienced guy who used to be the CFO of Goldman Sachs. And he says, it will be probably pretty soon a Chernobyl moment with AI. We all know what Chernobyl is. A Chernobyl moment like, okay, thing happening with AI. Yes, because that power is being used right now in pretty bad hands. So that's the biggest risk. Something pretty bad will happen. It's already being used for warfare, as all of you know. That's reality. The military and defense has transformed, continues to transform with AI. But it could be a lot more worse in pretty bad hands. And unfortunately, we might see that because there's no global governance on AI at all, zero. And so all doors are open for everything, open bar, for greatness and for bad things too.
Okay, thank you. Now you have to lift up our mood again. No, it's all good, Robin.
Well, I'll start with the risks then that are not very far from what was just said. I am also an optimist by nature, but I do think the risks are that at the moment, whilst I don't know, I would like to believe that AI could be a great equalizer, but at the moment, the inequalities in our world are very, very real and very, very deep. Social inequalities, economic inequalities, power inequalities, and at the moment, the power doesn't sit with those of us who are trying to shape a future for tech and AI that will be, the better version. So that, for me, is the bigger risk at the moment, that we don't quite collectively really get how important it is to shift that power. The hopeful side, as I said earlier, is I do think, and I've worked in civil society and social justice for over 2 decades, this is the first topic in a long, long time that I see is actually bringing people together. Mm-hmm. And this is a moment to seize, to bring different sectors of civil society and across society together. It requires work, it requires resources, it requires support, it requires to be intentional. But that is a hope. It's something that can actually bring people together.
Thank you, Evelyn. Brings people together. So I have a few questions. I have one question here, one question there, one question there. So you 3, and then I'm afraid we won't have time for more, but there will be a coffee break afterwards. So that's the good news, and you'll be able to grab the panelists. If you just introduce yourself very briefly, and then one question and no monologues, if I may ask.
I'll be brief. My name is Jan Jagers. I'm the CEO of The Checkers, which is a non-profit in Belgium. And I'm involved in the battle against disinformation and misinformation. And it goes without saying that it is challenging, as deepfakes are unrecognizable from real videos and talks nowadays. And my question goes, as far as I'm concerned, to a core concern that I have, and it's about transparency. It's about transparency in the long run, because there's speed and there's a lack of transparency right now. And I wonder how you, let's say, have arguments for your optimism. Let's put it that way.
Okay. Do you have one specific speaker you would like to reply? to your question?
To Monsieur Jean-Philippe. Jean-Philippe, s'il vous plaît. Merci.
Thank you.
I was going to give my mic to my neighbor because she would be great at that. But I think it's one of the main issues we have right now. I agree with you. When you talk about responsible AI, you usually talk about privacy, security, safety, diversity, fairness, accountability, never forget that, and transparency. Transparency meaning having the ability to open up the black box and understand actually what's behind in terms of algorithms, in terms of the models being used, and so on. I think, unfortunately, I would say at this stage, you have to pick the choice you want to make as you build an AI solution. And the only way you can do that is either you build yourself on an open source stack where you've got at least visibility on, to some open source stacks, by the way, not all of them are so transparent, that's another detail, where you could decide to build your own context, AI solution, and so on in full transparency and share it. From a governance standpoint, I think we are far away from having any global standards, so I'm not too optimistic on that for now, given obviously the fact that you've got the EU on one end with the AI Act, and there's been many debates about that, and it's not probably the best piece of regulation, but at least it goes in the right direction to be at least recognize that. But it goes in such a way that is not going to help necessarily European innovation as opposed to US and Chinese. So I think that's something we need to tweak as well. So I think transparency is something we need to work on all together because it's not coming naturally. You want to add to that? Because I think you're passionate about that.
No, I think those are the issues that, I mean, we've tried to keep it general, but of course, for us also working a lot with civil society, at the moment we sit a little bit more on the worried side than on the hopeful side, because what emerges is more everything we find out and we know about how AI is misused by state powers, by non-state powers as well, including on disinformation and all the impact it has on politics and democracy, etc., and privacy and policing, and so it's real. And I think we're in Brussels as well, and yes, there is a debate actually currently still in Europe. There is regulation, loads of things about whether it's a good or bad regulation, but actually at the moment, the risk is actually that even what is there is being pulled back. And so that is also something for us here in Europe to think about, because again, Europe has been the place where at least the discussions were in global relative terms, at least happening. So this is also a crucial moment to be part of that and to support this kind of work in many shape or form, because we still have a chance to shape the way the regulations that imply, protecting data, information, etc. We still are in a moment where we can shape it, hopefully, in the right direction.
Yeah, thank you. So the second, yes, please.
Hi. I'm Melody Lang, managing an impact fund, helping people enter work, stay relevant in work, and keep the ability to think and learn independently. Now, you have mentioned the AI divide. My major concern is the cognitive divide. Not everybody understands that AI has to be used as an augmentation layer and ultimately in symbiosis. But my concern is that, are we going to end up in a two-tier society? I think everybody's could reply, maybe Rob?
Yeah, I would say so, Rob.
Thank you for your question. We already live in a two-tier society with cognitive disadvantages. They start at birth or pre-birth. If you are very stressed out as a mother and you don't have all the nutrients in your environment to eat your kid, these kids already started at a disadvantage cognitively. We see this now. I think there's research in the city of Mechelen as well, where we try to deal with stress in unsafe environments, so low-income environments, because this is one of the biggest things that disadvantages in our learning, apparently. If you're very stressed, if you need to fight for your life, you're not easily going to sit through and do the slow way of thinking that has been referred to earlier. So with access to AI, it's going to be even worse. But it was already worse. I mean, we are going to lose about 1,000 students because we have to save 20 million euros at the VUB. So that's 1,000 students that will simply have no higher education starting next year. So I was already worried, and I think this technology is just widening this chasm we already had.
Okay. I promised a third question. If you can be really concise and also say who should respond.
Thank you, I'll try. My name is Leander Barrington-Leach. I'm the Executive Director of the Five Rights Foundation. We work on children's rights in the digital environment. Children, as you probably know, are at the forefront. They're very optimistic about AI, but they're also like the ones whose thinking processes, whose relationships, etc., are changing the fastest. And I wanted to point out and ask your views on what Phil AI indeed said, and a few of the panelists have said about education. And I think the probabilistically generated output was that AI could revolutionize education with customized learning pathways. The reality is that this
If you can maybe wrap it up so we can get a quick
The point is, pedagogists, like people who are experts in children's education, completely disagree with this. And yet, that is indeed what everyone is saying because of the hype around the business opportunity. So my question indeed is, how can philanthropists ensure that philanthropists do not fall into the trap of AI solutionism and indeed a focus on humanist solutions rather than AI solutionism? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So whoever responds has 15 seconds for the reply.
I'll try to make it very short. So I think it's going to take a combo. Maybe this is the center thing I was talking about, where you need to keep the teacher in a different role with AI. There are some experiments happening in Europe and the US. I'm not saying this is best in class. You may have heard about Alpha School as an example, where they created basically a personalized AI models. No, it's not LLMs, based on all the curriculum in the US and so on. And the kid will spend a couple of hours with this personalized learning, and the rest of the day is all spent with a cohort of kids on basically life skills, making a pitch, creating something, cooking, launching a project. Long story short, they've been doing that for a couple of years, and the teacher becomes the coach of the kids, so he has a role to basically center one kid at a time in combo with the AI and the kid, but eyes to eyes with the kid. And the result seems to be, at this stage, 99% percentile best in class for that experiment that has gone for a few thousand kids. So that's one example. But I think it's going to take this combination of AI at the service of the student, the kid, and the teacher. But it means probably reinventing the role of the teacher in the classroom as well. Mm-hmm. It cannot be the same anymore anyway, because the kids will come with AI embedded somewhere with them.
So these were longer 15 seconds, but thank you still. All right. Normally, I would wrap up the session and tell you all about the takeaways. I'll try to be very efficient, and I'll turn to our AI. So Phil AI, can we bring you in one last time?
Hi, what's your question?
Well, my question is, I would like you to make my life easy and provide the key takeaways of our session. Like 5, if you please.
Certainly. The key takeaways include, firstly, AI offers immense potential for social impact, particularly in healthcare and non-profit funding, as demonstrated by panelists. Secondly, the discussion highlighted the importance of defining AI with preferences for assistive or augmented intelligence to complement human capabilities. Thirdly, concerns were raised about the AI divide and transparency, stressing the need for democratized access and governance. Fourthly, philanthropy is crucial in fostering collaborative movements and taking risks to shape an inclusive future. Finally, positive leadership focused on purpose and values is paramount to navigate the complexities of AI.
Thank you for AI. I let you draw your personal takeaways and conclusions. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you to my amazing panelists. You have been outstanding.